Good morning and good afternoon. Thank you all for taking time out of your day to join us. Typically, how these start is actually Maddie, coacher on my team, will lead off and provide an introduction. But unfortunately, Maddie's feeling a little under the weather today. So, what I want to do is just give her a huge shout out and thank you for putting this webinar together. She did an incredible job preparing us, and all the masterwork and craft behind this is Maddie's hard work. So, thank you, Maddie. For those who haven't met me or don't know who Pathwork is, let me give a very brief introduction. So I'm Ian Levinsky, the CEO of Pathwork. For the last decade of my life, my career has had a pretty constant through line. I've built software, businesses, and teams that are focused on bringing more jobs and people into the life insurance, health insurance, and annuities industry. For those already in the industry, what we've done is build things that make them more effective to run their companies better and multiply their impact so they can get more of these amazing insurance products in more people's hands. So Pathwork is the continuation of that through line. We founded Pathwork 2 years ago with one purpose. It's what's in the top left-hand corner of my screen, which is we power the people behind the policy. Specifically, we started the company when we did due to the emergence and rise of AI. We believe it will redefine what tasks look like and what professionals in our space can do. So we feel very, very blessed to partner with great agents, brokers, and carriers to craft and improve these powers. And honestly, building Pathwork has been one of the most fun things I've done in my career. And honestly, I see things each day that completely blow my mind and I didn't realize was possible. But that's enough about us. So I'm guessing people are wondering, what's the deal with this webinar and why is it happening? So people have always been really, really kind and complimentary to myself and people on my team. And one of the compliments we always get is people say, you all are so young. But every time I hear that, that's not how I feel. So for me, my hair is going gray. I've thrown my back out more times than I can count. And when I go to a conference and maybe have a few too many drinks late at night, damn, is it way harder to wake up the next morning than it used to be. But it got my team thinking and my mind thinking, who are some actually young, influential folks in our industry that we can create an opportunity for, get them on a platform to tell their stories, give their unique perspective? And how can we try to pull from small organizations, large organizations to give a diverse view? So after incessant persuading, begging, and coordination, we were able to actually get four actually young people who are deeply passionate and most importantly, insanely smart people from our industry. So I'm very, very excited to introduce Colin, Harrison, Amanda, and Chase. They work for or represent some of our industry's most tremendous organizations, companies like Simplicity Group, Mass Mutual, Integrity, AIMCore, Ash Brokerage, Libra, Highland Capital, and AmeriLife. And for me, for once, I'm actually excited to be the old guy in the room. So what I'm going to do right now is introduce each one of our panelists. Um, so let's start with Amanda, ladies first. You started your career at Northwestern. Um, Tell us a little bit about what you wish you had early on and how that's defined who you've become today.
Yeah, so I mean, most of my followers and folks on LinkedIn know me as the Decline Queen, and there's a very good reason for that title. So, like you mentioned, I started at Northwestern, and as a new agent, I didn't make it very far. I am one of the folks who unfortunately kind of failed out of that industry, and it was due to lack of resources early on. I hit a month where I had five or six declines that were completely unexpected. Um, and that early in the career, that can just destroy you right there. That's a couple months worth of income. So, um, luckily I was able to pivot and I found, CAFL who gave me a shot early in my career and really, really fell in love with brokerage and made it my mission to become the resource that I didn't have as a career agent.
Thank you, Amanda. Colin, on to you next. You have a very interesting background in getting to know you. So you started your career at Anheuser-Busch after graduating from college. Tell us how you got from there to here.
Is my camera working? My power just went out at my house, so I added my
Colin
hotspot on
also
my
lives in the
phone.
woods. Yeah, he lives in the woods of Tennessee, but you're good. We can hear
Normally,
you
my
from
internet,
DC.
my power worked pretty good, but I guess not today, just in time for
Yeah.
this webinar. But yeah, 8 years ago, I was selling beer for Anheuser-Busch, trying to figure out how to increase market share. And I decided I didn't want to move every 2 years when I got a promotion. So I took a leap of faith, and a guy that I had met playing soccer at Indiana University had moved over to Ash Brokerage, and it was somebody that I trusted and respected. And I ultimately wanted to work for this guy, Daryl. And even though I knew nothing about the industry, I thought it was the right step at the right time, at least to give it a shot and see how things went. I didn't even have term insurance for myself at that point in time, no disability insurance, literally knew nothing about the insurance industry, so I was coming in from scratch, which obviously made things difficult starting out calling on advisors who wake up every day doing financial planning, and I didn't even know the basics. So in the beginning, I really just focused on asking good questions and building incredible teams because if I could get the right information and plug in the right players, then ultimately, as a team, we could help these advisors get to the finish line. But what I quickly learned was time was my most valuable resource. And if I wanted to get to where I wanted to in this business, that I was going to have to swim upstream and do larger and larger cases. But you can't be the clueless guy in the room doing larger and larger cases. So I had to invest in myself and invest in my education. So really dove into what mattered to those people in the rooms that I wanted to be in. So focused on the tax planning side of the business, focused on the trust and estate planning side of the business so that I could use the same vernacular as the people that I wanted to talk with. And then ultimately became a product nerd on the product side so that I could help these advisors in real time when we got on calls. And ultimately, that's paid dividends. It's helped me get into the rooms I've always wanted to be in. And last year, our team did 17 million of target premium and almost $2 billion of death benefit. So coming from a guy that knew nothing about the business, it just proves that if you invest in yourself, invest in your education, that anything's possible in this business.
Nice. Did you celebrate with old Budweisers?
I'm more of a Miller Lite guy, to be honest.
Oh no.
If I got to
Uh,
drink a lager, I'm probably picking up a Miller Lite. Maybe an
all
Ultra
right.
here and there, but not a
Yeah.
huge Bud Light guy.
All right. Well, Chase, it's your turn. So, Chase, what we've learned about you is your grandfather was a financial advisor for more than 50 years. How much of your path in this industry goes back to him and his influence?
I was Ian, first of all, thanks for having me. I was very fortunate to have a grandfather that invested a ton of time on me growing up. Wow, he was more of a very good friend than a grandfather, and that's a story for another day. But he served as a financial advisor for nearly 50 years, actually, ending with LPL. And as a little boy, you kind of want to emulate those that you look up to. And so I majored in corporate finance and banking to go into the financial services industry in college. And I knew I actually wanted to get to Atlanta. And so as I was looking for opportunities, an opportunity came across to me from someone I had connected with previously in the financial services industry, was looking for a sales rep in Atlanta as a regional BGA. And I took that role because it allowed me to get into the financial services industry. And most importantly, it allowed me to call on financial advisors, which was for me a good personal fit. I spent the first 6 years of my career at that BGA. Wonderful people there. They trained me exceedingly well. 6 years into that role, I received a phone call from Kay Dempsey here in Atlanta and across the country. Is kind of a tight industry. Uh, and joke with people. So Kim calls you for
Chase,
a succession plan for
there
her
we go.
business and for me and my family. Yeah. Oh, did I go out for a second?
You
Can you
did.
hear
We
me?
lost you for a sec, but I think we got it. It was to play it back. Chase is now at the K Dempsey Company, which is part of Simplicity Group. I think
Yeah,
we got
sorry
all
about
that
that.
right. Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah.
Um, so Harrison, you're last. Harrison and I have known each other for about 15 years. We actually were teammates in college who played football together. So while Colin was hanging out on the soccer pitch, Harrison and I were mucking it up on the football field. So Harrison, for you, life just changed a lot recently. You made a big move to work over at Highland Capital Brokerage. What were you doing before, and what are you doing next?
Yeah, I think it's I'm in a rare breed. I was kind of born into this business. I don't know if a lot of people would choose to be born into the life insurance space, but I definitely was. And my mom ran and is still running a Libra BGA, Innovative Solutions. I did start at Prudential in their Life Sales Academy right out of college, so I knew pretty quickly what my future was going to look like in a way. Lived in Hartford for 3 years and then transitioned to Innovative Solutions for about 8 years. Once I kind of had the experience and knowledge to work more in the brokerage space. But just recently, I transitioned over to Highland. I brought a lot of great people with me as well, which has been fantastic. So far so great. Highland's given me a lot of great tools and resources, and definitely excited to continue doing what I have been doing as they've allowed me to. So really not much is changing in terms of my day to day and my business, but just looking to utilize Highland and its size and resources to continue growing that and finding other opportunities that I didn't have in the past.
Well, thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Colin. Thank you, Chase. Thank you, Harrison. We're now going to get into the meat of the programming. So before we get into that, we do just need to get some quick logistics. Today is about an hour, so it's going to be about 45 minutes of content from here out. We do really, really encourage Q&A. So please drop questions into the Q&A panel. If there's a specific panelist that you do want to ask the question to, please note that. We'll keep track of it. For anyone who registered or is joining, we always send a copy of this and you'll be receiving that the next day or two. So here's how we're going to be breaking up the rest of the time here. What we want to do is we want to make this fun, exciting, maybe a little spicy. So we split it into 4 discussion formats, kind of influenced by some fun podcasts. First off, we're going to let each of the panelists do about a minute rant on something they're passionate about. They all prepared today for something they think might be a little controversial or something that maybe they think differently on than other people. Second, we're going to do a fun session, what we're calling Prove Me Wrong. I've got a few pre-prepared statements or hot takes. Each of the panelists has a sign with them that says agree or disagree, and we're going to let the discourse flow from there. Where we're going to be spending most of our time is this third topic, which is what's working. So tactical takeaways on strategies they're using to build pipeline, how to close more business, tools they're using, and habits that have changed how they operate and work. And then we'll close things out looking towards the future. So some predictions. The call is recorded, so we'll see whose predictions turn out well a few years from now, but should be a fun part there. So again, encourage everybody to drop Q&A in. So let's get started. So where we're going to get started is what we're going to be doing is we've actually paired off the team. So Amanda is going to be starting with what we're calling her rant, and then it's going to be Harrison's job to react to it. He can be in favor, maybe some new color or nuance. So Amanda, you're up first. The mic is yours.
All righty. All right. So, I think as we found in some of our earlier discussions, my approach to, really trying to go after those career advisors, those, the big mutuals, those guys, not every BGA is doing that. And especially when I talk to other brokerage managers or, VPs or whatever you want to, whatever title a brokerage professional has, everybody's always looking to move up market and work with ultra high net worth. They're looking to work with big giant producers, the old guys who have been doing this for years. I think in the brokerage space, we're kind of killing our industry by doing that. If we're only focusing on those heavy hitters, we're leaving a ton of untapped potential in the young talent and in the small, what would be considered smaller cases and cases that other people don't want, because those people need support too. And kind of how I mentioned in with my story, I had no idea what brokerage was when I was at Northwestern. So I think there's a lot, we're doing ourselves a disservice by not developing those younger advisors sooner.
Cool. Harrison, agree, disagree? Anything you want to add or change?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I get texts and calls from friends all the time saying, "Hey, I got this email or LinkedIn message from a Northwestern Mutual agent, and they want to be my financial advisor." I'm like, hold on, I don't know if it's a financial advisor. They're trying to sell you insurance and send me what they're sending you, and it is just an insurance play for the most part. So I think making sure that people are more educated at a younger age. It can't all just be ethos. It can't all just be these automated systems online, because I do think insurance is sold, and it has to also be part of the financial planning, no matter how old you are, because you can get locked into something for a long time. Whole life can be pretty, not very flexible. For example, just a lot of things that take into account that having an insurance specialist can help with.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I think we agree similarly at Pathwork. These are very complex insurance products. You want to get people into the right product at the right price, and an expert who knows this stuff is the best way to navigate. Chase, you're up next. You have the floor. What are you going to go on about?
I got two things, and I think everyone on this call and watching will agree. Do not get me started on 90 plus page illustrations. I don't know how in the world we are in this 2026 and I'm on the phone or even a Zoom call. I'm just scrolling, trying to find what page are you on? And we got 96 pages to go. So I don't know how we figure that out, but don't get me started on that, Ian. Number
Okay.
two, how is it that I can order my 2-year-old son a toy off of Amazon today and it's at my front doorstep tomorrow? But if I submit a life insurance application, it's going to take 6 weeks and an act of Congress to get medical records. So I just don't understand how that is still a thing. Ian, if you want to start another company, figure out how to find and obtain medical records in 24 hours. That's $1 billion idea for you. So don't get me started. Those are my two takes.
Great rants. Colin, what do you think?
I 100% agree with both of those takes. I think the first one is critically important. The easier you can make the story to understand for the consumer, the quicker you can get to the planning implementation. Obviously, long illustrations exist for disclosures and full education, but if you can't get the planning done because someone gets lost in the nuance before they can understand the big picture, that's a problem. I'm not saying that the details don't matter, but you got to get alignment on the big picture strategy before those details matter. So we typically start with like a one-page simplified composite, get alignment for whatever the strategy is, and then follow it up with whatever the 90-page carrier illustration is. But yeah, there's definitely got to be a better way for that sales story to go through.
So Chase gave me a call today to tell me that his printer was broken. And now I understand why. He's printing 96-page illustrations five to
That's
10 times a
right.
day. Yeah.
Let's be environmental friendly,
Yeah. I
Ian.
think it'll be
So
better for everybody.
Just wait till you try and write a paper app in New York.
Good point.
don't get me started.
Yeah. All right, Harrison. What should we not get you started on?
Yeah, I started angrily typing pretty quick here. It started out in two parts: consistency and innovation, and then it just became consistency and innovation. And I think it's always extremely frustrating having differences between carriers and what we do on a daily basis, and the inconsistencies that are involved with that, whether that's an application, Chase, as you said, an illustration. It's just extremely frustrating. It's good being in the brokerage side that we have so many options, we have so many carriers, so many different products. It gives us that ability to making sure that we're showing the client the best possible solution for them. However, with that comes a lot of inconsistencies in applications, in e-interview systems. Who gets the e-app, who gets the e-signature first, the agent or the client, or all these different types of things. You try and have data forms to fill an application, but each carrier asks different questions. You have to go back 3 times to get the correct answers. So that is my biggest gripe with our industry right now, and it's really difficult, and because it has to come from a carrier first. It's a top-down type of system, and we're all at the hands of the carrier and what their ability is. And having them kind of change and update their systems with I think COVID helped with that a little bit in terms of kind of getting them to act a little bit faster because they had to, but getting a little bit more consistency in what we're doing from a technology side will help. And I think it'll help us be more efficient, and it'll help the client and the agents become a little bit less frustrated in the process.
Cool. So to summarize that a little bit, Harrison is calling out our wonderful partners over on the carrier side to maybe chat a little bit and simplify and straighten things out. Amanda, what do you think?
I 100% agree with that. Especially working with younger and newer advisors who aren't used to brokerage and are only used to their home office. It is a nightmare trying to get them to understand, you know, okay, yeah, this is how it's done one place, but every carrier has their own process. And especially because the bulk of my business is in New York, it's a whole nother can of worms with, Reg 187 and getting trainings done and, product specific trainings. It's a lot.
Cool. Well, thank you. We're now going to be moving into the next session, which we're calling Prove Me Wrong, which is our debate round. Oh, sorry, I actually forgot. Paul, you're up. I can't
Come
believe I
on,
almost
my
forgot
man.
that. Yeah, you're up. Go for it.
I guess my hot take is anyone that says it's what the rich do should lose their insurance license. I think that's my hot take because the people that have $1 million net worth have vastly different planning circumstances than someone with a $10 million net worth, and someone with a $10 million net worth has vastly different circumstances than someone with a $100 million net worth. Their tax problems are different, their planning needs are different, their risk profiles are likely different, and the opportunities that exist from an insurance planning perspective because of their asset mix is vastly different. The really cool stuff that you can do for someone with $100 million net worth doesn't even exist for the people with $1 million net worth because their assets don't support that type of planning. So anyone that says it's what the rich do to try and sell in the middle market should probably lose their license because the rich are not doing whatever you're pitching.
Chase, thoughts?
Colin and I view the insurance industry very similarly. I mean, insurance is a byproduct of planning. And for me, there's nothing that bothers me more than when an RA picks up the phone and is like, hey, I saw this TikTok about infinite banking. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, I've got, it's just, it, I couldn't agree with Colin more. That's a whole nother segment, but yes, I would agree with that statement. So.
Cool. Well, I'm sorry to cut you off, Colin. That was a very good rant. So where we're going to move to next is I have about 5 or 6 prepared statements. They're statements. They pick one side. I'm hoping for a little discourse. We've had a lot of agreement right now, so we have tried to pick some that, are a little bit different. So I'm actually going to change up the order for one that I think, might cause a little bit of a debate. So this is the fun one. Here's the statement: is my firm's AI policy is holding me back. And this is the point where everybody's going to hold up the agree or disagree sign.
Can we decline to participate to stay out of HR?
Disagree. Oh, okay. So Amanda, all right. Colin is like holding tight on the party lines. I appreciate that. He's a good corporate man. Amanda, you were one that said agree.
Yeah.
Tell me more. Yeah.
Okay, so and this has more to do with having just changed jobs and being over at a broker dealer again. There's a lot more compliance to consider. There's a lot more regulation. When I was at Capel, which is AIMCore, there's transitions happening all over the place. But they were very flexible and they were always willing to hear us out if we needed a resource. But things are changing and depending on where you are, there's a lot more restriction as far as what is compliant and was not. So I'm learning it as we speak.
Nice. So Colin, you are picking neutral. You're the Switzerland of the call. Hypothetically, there was something you wish existed and maybe didn't have it now. What would be something you think a tool like AI could help you with?
Yeah, I totally understand Integrity's current policy around AI. We do have Microsoft Copilot, which is a step up from having nothing at this point in time. But ultimately, I think their concerns are around like data integrity and security and making sure some of these other AI models aren't leveraging data that shouldn't be going outside of our walls. But I think there should be um, a line drawn in the sand in regards to like what you're allowed to do with Claude or some of the other AI tools and like what you would have to do inside of Microsoft Copilot and Integrity's environment. And I think that there's some things that you can do from a marketing perspective that have nothing to do with client security or data integrity or any of those things that could be done in a less secure quote unquote platform, but totally believe in making sure client data is protected and the reason that the Copilot AI tool exists within that platform. So that's why I'm
Yeah.
Switzerland, because I get why their stance is their stance, but I think some other stuff could be done on the Claude or other tool side of things without impacting security as long as people aren't dumb. But the reality is people make dumb decisions, so you got to put rules in to prevent people from doing that.
Yeah. Colin, you're very well media trained. Well done.
I was gonna say he is media trained, isn't he? And
Yeah, he is. Harrison, you said to disagree, correct? Isn't that what you held up? So
Yeah.
you have the interesting perspective of just switching shops. Tell us if you notice any differences. What do you wish you had, or how are you being supported right now?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of I'm still learning, obviously, everything that Highland has to offer, but I do know that they are at the forefront of trying to implement. I mean, Ian, Highland and Pathwork work very hand in hand. They do a lot of work together in trying to improve systems and opportunities as much as possible. So I know that there's definitely a lot of movement and understanding that is an opportunity. But I'm definitely still learning at what those might look like in the future and what I have today. Um, and and I knew back at my old firm, Innovative, they were very, very innovative on the AI space. My brother did a lot of active learning and building out tools on the AI side as well. So definitely have some good experience on that, but I'm excited to learn what Highland will be building in the future.
Right. And Chase, I have to say, I forgot what you held up. Would
I put
agree, disagree?
disagree, partly because
Okay.
that's AI is a little bit over my pay grade on what we should be and should not be doing. And,
Yeah.
we switched to Google Gemini, let's call it 3 or 4 months ago. And I've really enjoyed that. I mean, I think to Colin's point, we're dealing with very sensitive information. And the last thing I want is a data breach or anything of that nature. And Simplicity does a really, really good job of vetting everything before we're allowed to use it. So I trust leadership, and when leadership makes a decision, they say this is the lane we're going in. I'm good with that. So we typically use Gemini and some other things as well. So
Cool. Thank you. Appreciate the diverse perspectives. We're going to move on to another hot take. So I'll say this one slowly. No one actually understands what will happen with so many older producers and advisors aging out of the industry. Panelists, do you agree or disagree? All right, Harrison, you're the odd man out. Why do you disagree?
Well, this is I think it's because a lot, at least from my perspective, I do think a lot of people understand where it's going. I think it's going a lot more institutional. I have me and my and Innovative, we were built on an independent producer and an independent insurance agents. And while that business is very strong. It's where a lot of the larger cases come from, and where a lot of the great relationships come from. We do see them aging out a little bit, and a lot of the younger types of agents and producers out there are associated with firms and advisory firms, whether that's RIAs or institutional platforms. And I think that's just mostly because of the insurance planning is being a little bit more incorporated into the financial planning aspect. And that producers and RA firms and institutionals are real and are understanding a little bit more the fiduciary responsibilities behind insurance planning. And I do think that there's some understanding that that's a little bit where the direction's headed. But that's just, my perspective.
Cool. Do you think there's a safety net there in these large institutions that should kind of change how the mix happens? Fair summary?
Yeah.
Cool. Amanda, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can all speculate what it's going to look like, but I don't know, especially working on the career side, I just see so many potentially great people leaving the industry every single day because they can't get a foothold. And you know, especially, at CAFL, we had a aging advisor book, and that was hard to see advisors leaving with no continuity plan. Whether they were retiring or passing away, unfortunately, no continuity plan, nobody to take their place. Um, I think there's a lot more of that out there than we realize. And advisors, you would think, like if they're helping their clients with planning, they should be planning themselves, but a lot of the times they don't. So
Mhm.
I really don't know what it's going to look like. Where there needs to be more planning on the retiree side, and there needs to be a little bit more support for new advisors.
Cool. Colin, your thoughts?
Yeah, ultimately, I think AI will have a large part in the basic blocking and tackling of insurance planning, but where the biggest gap is going to exist is in where actual planning comes into play for higher net worth clients, whether it's business planning or tax planning from an estate planning perspective. And the challenge is recurring revenue is king. And a lot of younger advisors believe in that philosophy, and that's why you see so many focused on the AUM side of the business.
Yeah.
So with nobody there to backfill from a knowledge perspective, the advisors that are aging out of the business, that's going to become a larger and larger gap. And it's not just in like the independent broker dealer channel or the RIA space. Even if you look at like producer group firms, the guys that wake up and eat, sleep, and breathe life insurance relative to their other financial planning peers, their demographics aging just as rapidly as like the fee based space that's not focused on insurance planning. So there's definitely going to be a large opportunity for the people that want to concentrate in that area to backfill these aging producers. But I think the fact that insurance is not a recurring revenue stream, it's a kind of a one-hit wonder type of commission structure, makes it challenging for people to want to dedicate their career into having to hunt every day to generate those commissions instead of having a steady stream of income when they wake up on January 1st.
So you've been in the industry for almost a decade. Anything you've started to feel for reverberations with the aging advisor force or producer force? Something feel different in 2026 than it maybe felt in 2019?
I think the biggest difference is just my knowledge and understanding of the industry. I was probably so naive back in the day that I couldn't really see the things that I see now. Um, there's more legacy or old, I say legacy producers. There's more older producers that are coming back to insurance planning that were burned in the past that might have
Yep.
had bad experiences 15, 20 years ago and shied away from planning, but now they have clients that are worth 40, 50, $100 million where insurance is a critical part of the overall financial plan. And they're just looking for trusted resources that aren't going to pitch them insurance crap, but actually solve problems for their clients that are becoming more open-minded than I would say 5, 10 years ago.
Got it. So we actually, interestingly, we got a Q&A that I think would actually be interesting to throw in here. So I'm going to put this in. Somebody had this comment. They said, the insurance business is shifting direct to consumer and eliminating agents. So this came out of nowhere. Nobody got to prep before this. Does everybody on the phone agree or disagree?
Yeah.
No, I mean, I got thoughts on this. Am I allowed to
Shoot,
talk
Chase,
again?
it's your turn. Yeah, go ahead.
I guess I'm gonna put
Yeah.
yes and no. Maybe transactional term business. There's opportunity there for to eliminate some of that, maybe. But I, Harrison said it earlier, is insurance is sold. It's not necessarily bought. And what I mean by that is you need that human interaction, specifically in the high net worth planning, but planning in general. AI is going to help process, Lord willing, process a lot of things, but you still need that interaction with the advisor, with the client to understand what those goals are and have a conversation because it can be a complex sell. It's like, okay, you have an understanding of what the client needs, then we got to go through underwriting. Underwriting is a whole different process. Then once underwriting is completed, you figure out what the cost of coverage is, and then you got to regroup on that end. I don't think AI is going to eliminate the agent in that. I personally don't. Maybe again in the transactional term business, but not in the high net worth space. No, I don't think it is. So
Great. So in the interest of time, I'm actually going to move us into our third segment. It's where we wanted to spend most of our time, so I'm just keeping track of the clock. What this segment is called is it's called What's Actually Working? And I think one of the questions I've been most excited to ask is actually to both Amanda and Colin. You both have built real followings on LinkedIn. I didn't pull the follower numbers before we got on, but they're impressive. You guys get a lot of thoughts, a lot of interactions. You guys have great content. So I'm gonna start with you, Colin. What's resonating with your audience, and is that actually turning into any business?
I try and post things that are educational, things that most advisors aren't thinking about on a daily basis because they don't eat, sleep, breathe life insurance. And ultimately, that thought leadership that I try and provide on LinkedIn has created a lot of inbound activity. Sometimes that's immediate cases where someone's stuck and they're looking for an outlet to fix a problem. It could be underwriting, it could be product, it could be a number of different things. Or it's really eliminated the dating process in terms of new advisors that are looking to work with us. They already know who I am when they pick up the phone to call me. So I don't have to pitch them on who I am or what Ash does or any of that stuff. They kind of understand my story, understand my thought process. And as a result, we can get to the punchline a lot quicker in terms of actual client support. So LinkedIn has been a tremendous resource for me in terms of growing my book of business. It's definitely not a payday on Friday, as my grandfather would say, because you do
Yeah.
all this work and sometimes it immediately doesn't show up. But the amount of calls I get 6 months after I post something about something that I posted, they're like, oh, I saw this, but it wasn't applicable then, but now I have an opportunity is pretty wild. So LinkedIn has been a great tool for me.
When did you really start in earnest spending time on it and investing your time to make it worthwhile?
Probably 2 or 3 years ago is when I started to become more active. Every January, I do my business plan with all these things that I'm supposedly going to do on LinkedIn in terms of activity. And by January 2nd, I've never done them. So
Okay.
maybe 2026 will be the year that I actually do the activity that I think will move the needle on LinkedIn at a quicker clip. But it's eliminated prospecting for me in a large part and made most of my day-to-day business reactive to advisors reaching out that are interested in working with us or advisors reaching out with opportunities. So it's really changed how my business has evolved.
Love that. Any new channels you're thinking about?
Um, I there's a guy named Sam Harnish on LinkedIn that has a Substack.
Okay.
I did figure out that I can get a Substack approved through compliance at Integrity. So it's
All
kind of
right.
a combination of a blog and email-based platform that I can replicate some of the LinkedIn content on those types of uh, materials and continue to blast that out to the people that follow me or different audiences. So email marketing with like thought leadership is another thing that I do a lot of, but I think the it can be consumed better with something like a Substack based platform instead of just me typing in an email.
Yeah. Colin, what's clear to me is you're thinking about it. One of my favorite quotes about thought leadership is everyone wants to be a thought leader, but no one wants to do any thinking. So
Yeah.
appreciate it
Well,
that you're actually
the
doing
little
it.
bit that I've done in terms of actual action has produced results. I just gotta do more action on the LinkedIn
Nice.
and on the other side of things.
Nice. Amanda, the Decline Queen. Tell us the genesis of that brand and what you've been doing on LinkedIn and how it's worked for you.
Yeah, I mean, you've heard my story and where I kind of, my mission is. And I had an advisor a little over a year ago call me the decline queen, and I was like, "Ah, I like that. I'm gonna take
Mm,
that and run with it as silly as it is." And, you know, especially having it right in my tagline on LinkedIn. An advisor sees that, and for the most part, if they're an insurance producer, they know exactly what I do the second they see that. So it's
mhm.
been very fruitful, kind of like Colin was saying. I still do prospect, but I probably don't need to if I just talked to the people who are interacting with my posts on LinkedIn and messaging me and calling me. Um, it's incredible the amount of people who truly do see and consume your content, but will never interact with it. And that's a lot of the messages and the calls that I get are producers who I have never even seen. Like I might be connected with them, but they're not, interacting with my posts at all. And they'll say, "Oh, I saw your post on this. I saw your post the other day." And I was like, "I had no idea this was even coming up in your feed." So it's
Mhm.
it's really neat. But I think just over a year ago is when I really started to be intentional with my posting and consistency and really curating that content. I do a lot of personal content, not as much educational content, which, you know, kind of similar to what Colin was saying. I like that when I reach out to somebody or they're thinking of me first thing in their mind when they have a case that goes awry. So
Mhm. Well, Amanda, one thing I love about your stuff is it's very relatable. It's very authentic. I feel like I've gotten to know you without knowing you. So I love it. Keep it up.
thank
Um, so, Chase, sounds like no LinkedIn presence. You're doing it on hard mode. How do you build a sustainable pipeline? How do you generate business?
Trying to get there on the LinkedIn. Maybe one day I'll get there. My sustainable pipeline, to be honest with you, is through centers of influence. And I think we were talking about this when we were prepping for this, but for me, relationships in a non-renewal business, relationships are a little bit of your renewals in the sense that if you're calling on the right people and building the right relationships and listening to what's going on in their business and understanding and providing value, those relationships are going to generate business organically. And that's how I feel like I've built it over 8 years is really understanding the type of clientele that fits the expertise that hopefully I can bring to them. And instead of just being in the point of sale space specifically, instead of just being an insurance salesman, I really feel like I'm a consultant, a partner to them. And and partnering with those RIAs specifically, what that allows me to do is have a consistent pipeline because they know I'm there. They know I'm going to take care of their client. A lot of them going through it firsthand and writing insurance on themselves. So it's been really the relationships is the pipeline. Of course, I know what cases are going on here and there, but having the right team behind me to get those processed as well. So.
Yeah. So in our prep call, we joked about what tattoos all of us would get. But I always say with building software is crawl, walk, run. I say I need to get that on my bicep. Chase had the amazing quote where he's like, relationships are my renewals. And I was like, if you don't say that on the webinar, I'm going to be really disappointed. So mission accomplished, buddy. I appreciate it.
There you
Um,
go.
Harrison, you have a unique perspective. As you mentioned, your mom's been in the industry, big influence on you. What's going on both with advisors and clients today that was different than when you started working in the industry? And even I'm sure you've had these discussions with your mom, who has a deeper timeline of operating. You know, what are people expecting now that they didn't before?
In terms of the relationships with our producers and the clients themselves, or us and the clients directly?
I'd say you and the clients, just what it looks like to operate the business, how things are changing.
Yeah, it's really changing just because of, who and where you're selling to is the biggest difference. And I think back in the day, 20, 30 years ago, it was kind of like the wild, wild west in brokerage. I think if you were able to get in somewhere and you were able to plant your flag, that was a great relationship that you're able to keep for a long time. But in the last 4 or 5 years with all this M&A, it's really changing the course of where we're able to partner. And I think that that's kind of the biggest change is just who's partnering with who owns who, right? There's a lot more questions you have to ask yourselves now when going into a relationship. And then also what happens to your relationships. Your relationships could be owned by someone that you didn't even know they were owned by, and then all of a sudden, boom, your relationship changes and they might have a restriction on who they're able to do business with. So I think that's the biggest thing is making sure that those relationships are tight and strong enough to where if something does happen, you still have the ability to stay within that that relationship, that RA firm, that producer group, etc. But it's definitely changed more in the last 5 years with all this M&A. But outside of that, like Chase said, I think the relationship is the most important part, and I think you can get around a lot of that as long as that's strong and good.
Love that. So I know we're calling this webinar the Rising Stars of Life Insurance, and we've pitched it with everybody being young here. But I think, as a lot of people mentioned, this has been your career already for 8 to 10 years. So I'd love to ask a question. I'm going to start with you, Amanda. Um, what are you doing right now to find and connect with younger people in the space? And what do those conversations look like? What are you talking about?
Yeah, I kind of had to, speak their language a little bit. I'm I'm right on the cusp of millennial and Gen Z. But I also, so in addition to LinkedIn, I also have an Instagram presence. And, just kind of like you were saying, where you feel like you know me from my LinkedIn posts, Instagram, I can be even more myself and, post stories. And I don't know, just finding them where they are is my strategy when it comes to younger advisors. And again, trying to put myself in their shoes, where they're at, what their struggles are, what they're dealing with. If I can relate to them and tell them, hey, I've been in your shoes. Like, I know what you're going through right now. I think it helps them to, be a little bit more vulnerable with me too. And, tell me where they're struggling and how I can support them and how I can help
Mhm.
them.
Great. Colin, you mentioned coming into the industry, not knowing anything, leaning on a lot of other people to get smart. What does it look like if, you know, Colin Webb's mentoring me? What do you do?
That's a good question that I don't have a good answer for. Um, I think ultimately you just have to get at bats in this industry. There's not a book that you're going to read. There's not a webinar that you're going to attend that's going to give you the practical knowledge to move your career forward. So how do you position yourself to get in the right rooms and just be a fly on the wall so that you can learn by experience? That's ultimately how I learned, and I think it's the most effective way. So if you can foster relationships just so that you can be a fly on the wall and learn by doing, that's ultimately the best way to grow in this business. So if you're a young advisor, don't be the hero trying to go it alone. You're going to be a person that might give up 50 or 80% of a case if you have a great relationship with a client, just so that you can actually get that case across the finish line and use the learning experience. That learning experience is going to be tremendously more valuable than whatever comp you're going to give up in the early years. And if you didn't give up the comp, the likelihood the case goes closed is probably zero, or placed is probably zero, and you're not going to have the learning opportunity that's going to help you progress in your career. So, if I had to give advice to someone coming into the industry, it would be focus on the network that you create. Don't necessarily focus on product or any of those other things, but surround yourself with people that can help push you forward from an at-bats perspective in terms of being able to be a fly on the wall in some important rooms.
So I think if I heard that right, there is no Colin Webb Jr. out there. So if anybody wants a mentor, find Colin's phone number or find him on LinkedIn.
Drop his number in the chat.
Yeah, exactly. Chase, you've had the awesome opportunity to work with, truly a tremendous person in the industry, Kay Dempsey. I've been able to meet her. She's an awesome person. How do you think about, growing that business? Who else you want to work with? People you want to bring into the space? Where are things going to go for your firm?
And Kay's wonderful. I told people I've been here 18 months, a little over 18 months, and I've got my PhD in insurance. It's been great. And I think part of that, as I said this earlier, is she told me coming on board, she goes, a bamboo tree grows 5 feet in 5 years before it grows 50. And it's like, okay, I've laid the groundwork. How do I get to the next level? And that is, I've been calling on the right people, but maybe I'm not having the right conversations. And so she always talks about listening to understand rather than listening to speak. And so what I'm trying to do more in meetings is have a conversation with the advisor where I'm listening to what it is that they need. And hopefully I have the knowledge on the insurance side that if it makes sense that I can step up and be viewed as a resource to them in that space. And, from simplicity side of things, simplicity is on a rocket ship of growth. Ian, and it's been wonderful working, being a partner of the firm and getting to know people across the country. So for me, I'm excited about the growth that we have going and having an endless amount of resources truly to be able to learn from, to grow, and to serve clients. So
So I think I'd love to back you up on one piece there, which has been something I've really changed recently in how I work and do my job is a lot of people, when they hear somebody ask a question, like a prospect, a customer, something like that, they're thinking about how to answer the question. And actually, the right thing to think about is why are they asking that question?
yeah,
Like that's the real clue. So if there's any tactical thing that I've tried to adopt, it's that way of
she
working with
says,
you guys.
be interested, not interesting.
That's right. Appreciate that. All right, so we're gonna go rapid fire to end this session. Would love for you all to go around and just talk about one tool you couldn't operate with right now, and then maybe even some other tools you've tried that aren't working right now. So, Harrison, go first.
Yeah, we use pretty standard operating tools. I don't think I'd be able to live without Copilot or just chat on the side. It's been extremely useful in terms of efficiency. Honestly, Ian, I'm not just saying this because you're here, but honestly, Pathwork has been fantastic for us. I think,
Thank you.
and I think our underwriters would all say that and agree with it too. And taking a lot of time off their plate for some small stuff and allowing them to keep their time and energy on the larger things. It's really been a huge tool in getting things done a lot quicker and more efficient. And so that's really what I'm looking for and using the most right now.
Love that. Colin, you next.
I'm gonna keep it simple and just say my cell phone. There's magic in phone calls that don't happen when you're corresponding via email. And going back to the point that you made, asking or trying to understand why a certain question is being asked is much better to unravel on a phone call than it is via email. And something that might look like a small opportunity based on the questions that are being asked can actually snowball into a monster opportunity as long as you continue to dig deeper and start to uncover what the root cause is of the questions that are coming your way. So the more time you can spend on the phone and the less time you spend in email has ultimately been a big driver in my business and helping uncover opportunities or transition things from small opportunities to much larger ones.
I love it when what's old is new again. Um, just easier to call someone sometimes. Amanda, what's a new tool you've been using, or maybe something you tried that didn't work out?
The tool that I couldn't live without right now, I'm just going to say LinkedIn. I mean, that's my highest ROI time spent. But as far as tools in the industry, I'm going to second what Chase said or Harrison said, and Pathwork is incredible, especially with the work that I'm doing with impaired risk cases. I mean, it has cut the time down from getting a case in to getting an answer to an advisor in half, and that's really valuable because you can lose a sale in those few days between when a case is declined and when you've got another pivot point for an advice or for a client. So, I mean, that's huge with the volume of cases that I'm dealing with and the type of cases that I'm dealing with. So,
Thank you. Appreciate it, Amanda. Yeah, we try to build useful stuff and get in as many people's hands as possible. So Chase, I may ask the question differently. Simplicity, awesome technology team there. Something interesting that they put in your hands recently to change how you do your work?
Ooh, a lot. I want to answer your last question. I'll answer the simplicity question first. We just came out with well, actually the Agent Center is probably the thing that's the best tool that they put in our hands, which is it's a dashboard. If you work through Simplicity, it's one-stop shop. You log in, it's got the policies you wrote through us, it's got all the resources from the carriers, it's got obviously access to the applications, questionnaires, things like that. So the Agent Center for me, it's kind of been a game changer for allowing agents like, hey, if you write business through us, all of your policies that have ever been written are right here. It's very simple to look at those. It's easy to ping a case manager for a case or ping somebody for policy service. So that's been a huge help for me. I actually wanted to go back. One thing that I tell you that I was challenged with by Jason Jenkins, who's our vice president of sales at Simplicity, is time blocking. And if I were to encourage anybody out there, is there's so many hours in the day or in the week for that matter, where we're hiding behind our email thinking that we're busy. And it's like, you got a time block to make proactive phone calls. And so what I started doing, and that's where I've seen my business really, really grow, is okay, from 4 to 5, right before I go get my son real quick, it's like, I'm just going to make some phone calls real quick, or whatever time that is that day, having it as a designated meeting to make proactive calls. So I just want to touch
Nice.
on that real quick.
I love that. It's a practice I've taken on myself. There's something some people say. It's this idea. It's called eat the frog, which is you start your day with the hardest thing first. When you've got the most energy, you're caffeinated, rather than like waiting for it to linger. Because, like you said, you get a good dopamine hit. You send an email, feels good, feels like you accomplished something. But is it really impactful? You don't really know. So, in the interest of time, I'm going to take us to our last session. Thank you all for that. Loved all the ideas, tips, and tricks to hear what's actually working in the space. So it's going to be a lightning round. We're going to go through this. We've got 4 minutes on the clock, and one thing about Pathwork and myself is we are a prompt crew. We show up to calls early and we don't love them to run long. So we're going to run that webinar the same way. Um, let's start with you, Amanda. What's one bet you're making on the future of the industry that you think most people aren't making yet?
My bet is I think that more people now than ever, especially with like the massive layoffs that we're seeing and everything that's happening in the economy, I think we're going to see more and more people start to bet on themselves and hopefully jump into the industry and give it a shot and take that chance on themselves, especially with how easy it's become to be a content creator and to gain an audience and to, really monetize and build a business on it's easy. It just gets easier and easier every year. I'm really hoping that we start to see more people take advantage of that.
Couldn't agree more. Every year it's easier and easier to start a company. It's amazing. Like so much easier. I know my dad was an entrepreneur, just like talking to him like what it takes to like pay payroll like 30 years ago. Like I can't imagine what he would have to do. He'd like call it in like every Monday or something like that. Harrison, how about you? What's one bet you're making on the future you don't think others are?
Yeah, I think I kind of touched on this earlier. I think partnerships are the future. I think, like I said earlier, I think a couple years ago we saw a lot of the M&A happening, and I think we're going to see a lot more of it in the future in the next 5 to 10 years. I think there's going to be a lot more consolidation in terms of who works with who's able to work with who as well. And like I said earlier, it's no longer going to be kind of like that wild west system of brokerage. I think it's going to be a lot of partnership based relationships. So that's really where I think it's going to be in about 5 to 10 years.
Love that. Agree with that fully. Colin, what do you think? What's one bet you're making on the future?
I'm just going to continue to double down in the ultra high net worth space and the advanced pointing relevant to those particular clients. I think as the current insurance agent population continues to age, that void's going to get even bigger for people to come in with expertise and knowledge to deliver and add value to people that focus on the AUM side of the business. So I'm going to continue to double down on that side.
Love it. And Chase, close us out, man. What's your bet?
My bet is that we're sitting in the best seats as an IMO and BGA. I think the future of our industry is carriers are investing in us to be able to, from a distribution perspective, and to educate advisors. Harrison mentioned the institutional space. We'll continue to see that. I think protection, these solutions that we offer are exceedingly important to advisors. So I think for us, as you do see people start to age out from the traditional life insurance salesperson and focus on AUM money management, it allows us to step into the opportunity to play the role as the insurance expert in the room, whether that's via point of sale or educating the client or educating the advisor even. So I think we're sitting in the best seat as an IMO and BGA, honestly. I think this is the future.
Love it. Well, thank you all. I think we are ending right on time. I want to personally say thank you for the panelists taking time out of their day, the people listening in on the phone call. If there's more people want to hear, we would be interested in a part two. Well, it sounds like we actually have one question. Let me make sure we've got it in here. I think we're all set, actually. So I'll get back on my closing thoughts. Thank you, everyone, for getting on the call. I know some were nervous. There was a lot of great preparation. I hope it was incredibly entertaining, educational, and valuable for everybody who listened in. Thank you all, and we will see you around the industry. Take care.
Hey, thanks, Ian.
Bye-bye.